Let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us by Addy6, who writes, "Hey John, I saw that the Flash movie with Ezra Miller just got a release date on July 1st, 2022, only 4 years after the original release date that it was supposed to have. Imagine that. I really hope this is true because Miller was great as Barry Allen and I want to have his own story. What are your thoughts on this? Greetings from Romania." All right. Well, first of all, Adi, thank you for writing in from Romania, man. That's always cool to have our international friends here.
My gynecologist is from Romania.
Wow. Maybe. Is his name
Adi?
Adi?
It's Adi. Hi, Adi. Time to renew my birth control.
I didn't recognize you from this angle. Okay, so anyway, we got a Flash movie. Now, we talked just a couple of weeks ago about how, listen, DC is saying they're still moving on the Flash thing. There's still movement. They're still moving on it. And there's no clearer signal than the fact that they come out and drop a release date. So 2022, the release date. Now, keep in mind, I was facetious a little bit earlier when I said this is the 27th release date, but I believe it is the third release date that we've had for it now. I think the first one was supposed to be 2018. I believe we were supposed to get the first Flash movie in 2018, maybe 2019. Let me be clear on this. I really like Ezra Miller as Flash. I really do. I thought he was one of the best things about the Justice League movie. And look, that's not to say, we get all these people saying, no, I'm a Grant Gustin guy. You don't need to pick one or the other. Grant Gustin on TV's Flash is a very different Flash than the Flash they got going in the movies, and it's not an either or. It's a both and. And I think Ezra Miller's Flash was really charming and funny and fun, and I just loved the character, and I would love to see him back. But this is a project that has gone through a lot of drama. And it's not just the release dates. As a matter of fact, right now, and you can count 3 other sets of directors that were loosely attached, but we are on our 4th real attached director or set of directors at this point. And as I joked about with Rob on a podcast yesterday, I said, if a guy walks into the room with his 4th wife, you're just wondering who's number 5. But just to highlight again, we had Seth Grahame-Smith was on. A lot of people were excited about him directing it. Then creative differences, he leaves. Rick Famuyiwa, who of course did Dope, was so good. Everybody got all excited when he was supposed to do Flash. Creative differences, he leaves. Then John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who I was a little bit skeptical of when they first announced him, but then their movie Game Night came out. And I watched Game Night. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. If these guys can bring that sensibility with Ezra Miller's iteration of Barry Allen, this could be really fun and really good. And they worked for a long time on it. Then they started clashing with Ezra Miller, and then Warner Brothers kind of threw them under the bus. So they said, okay, bye. And then they walked. Now we're on the 4th seriously attached. And again, there have been other directors attached, but only loosely. Now we're on Andy Muschietti, who of course is on a bit of a hot streak. Well, his hot streak's been cooled off a bit. He did It, which was awesome. And then he did It Chapter 2, which was not so awesome, but still he did It, so he could bring some really interesting sensibilities here. So now we've got a new release date and everything seems to be moving forward. I believe there are 3 important questions, and they're going to be 3 different answers when talking about this Flash, which I hope happens. Let's be clear about that. I want to see this movie. But I got 3 questions. The question number 1 is, will it actually hit the release date? Question number 2 is, will Ezra Miller actually be the Flash by the time it comes out? And question number 3 is, will Andy Muschietti actually be the director by the time this thing comes out? So I'll start with question number 1. Is this thing going to hit the 2022 release date? Surprisingly enough, I'm going to guess yes. I'm going to give it a 75% chance that it does hit this release date this time. John, why the optimism? I'll tell you why. Because we're in a new era over at DC under Walter Hamada. And Walter Hamada, ever since he begun his reign, good things have been happening at DC. Whether it's Aquaman, Shazam was absolutely brilliant. Joker was their second billion-dollar film and it's getting a lot of Oscar buzz, all that kind of stuff. Wonder Woman 84 looks terrific. We'll put Birds of Prey aside for a second. But they've run on a good streak, and this is a new sheriff in town. And if he's going to plant his flag and say, this is our release date for this movie, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'll go 75% that we're going to get that happen. I have bigger doubts that Ezra Miller's actually going to be the Flash. As a matter of fact, I suspect he's already out. And I don't know he's already out. Let's be clear. This is me as a fan speculating. I speculate that he's already out, and what we've got is a little bit of a Ben Affleck situation where he was actually out as Batman 2 years before they finally publicly admitted that he was out as Batman. I just think with all the drama we saw going on there with him, the fact that he wanted his own version of the script and WB rejected his version of the script, and then all the delays and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not saying he is out, but I'm going to say I think there's a 35% chance that we actually see Ezra Miller as Flash. So that's 35% is actually pretty solid, but I'm guessing it won't be. I hope I'm wrong because I really like him as Flash.
Can you just clarify what you just said? When you were talking about he wanted his own version of the script, were you talking about how Ben Affleck wanted his own version of Batman, or did Ezra Miller also want? Okay.
Ezra Miller actually wrote his own version of the script. He got together with He didn't like the direction that the two directors were going in, and he wanted a darker kind of Flash. And so he and this other guy wrote their own version of the script, a comic book writer.
Grant Morrison.
That's right. Wrote their own version of the script, took it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers rejected it. But even though Warner Brothers rejected it, the two directors were like, you just threw us on the bus by even allowing him to write that and reading it. So you threw us under the bus. Bye-bye. We're leaving. And
well,
so
hold
the
on. Let me
directors left.
ask you, how is that a different situation than, say, Ryan Reynolds getting involved with the writing of Deadpool? Because we were applauding him for that.
Because he's the producer and it was his movie in the first place. He's the one who got that movie made.
Okay. All right.
So, I mean, and the writers he hired the writers.
Oh, I see. Okay. No, I appreciate the clarification,
Yep.
because sometimes it can be a little confusing. Like,
absolutely it can. It's a huge jumbled mess. So I don't know that's going to happen. I hope it does, but I don't. The third question is the Andy Muschietti one. I'm going to go on a coin toss on this. I think there's a better chance that he's actually the director by the time this movie comes around than not. But I feel the reason I feel more optimistic about Andy is because it goes back to the Walter Hamada thing. I think he's planted his flag for his date, and I think he planted his flag for his date because Walter knows he's got his director. So I think it's a little bit of a coin toss for Andy, but not 50%. I'll go 60% that Andy is ultimately the director. I think 75% chance it does hit that release date, but I'm still a little bit skeptical that we're going to see Ezra Miller as the Flash when it comes around. Aaron, you're hearing all of this drama and all that kind of stuff.
It's like,
are we actually going to get a Flash movie in 2022?
Real Housewives.
And do you want
WB? So my first thought when I hear that there's creative differences is, okay, well, all the directors keep changing, but something is staying constant, that everybody is having all these creative differences. It can't be all the directors. It's got to be whatever the constant is. Now, maybe the constant is Ezra Miller. Maybe the constant is whoever was there before the new head of Warner Brothers. Whatever that is, that seems like that's the poison that needs to be removed. I like Ezra Miller. I like him a lot. I really want to see him as the Flash. But there is a certain point where if your lead actor is the person who's holding up the project, to where now we're looking at 4 years after a release date. And that's not, 4 years after when it was supposed to go into production. We were supposed to go into production like way back in 2016. So, and I also, here's my question for you, John. Why is it that we hear release dates before we hear production dates? For me, I would rather them say, okay, The Flash is going into production on this date, release date TBD, because as a viewer, as a fan, that makes more sense to me. Obviously, internally, you would know this is what our release date is aiming to be, but I want to know that it's actually happening. And so when I hear that there is a production date, I go, oh, okay, they're filming the movie. Things are moving along. That's good. We have a step in the right direction. If I hear a release date, just like with John Wick or, whatever's happening, the release dates change all the time. So I can't really hang my hat on that. I can go, oh, I see a production still in Us Weekly. Not that I read Us Weekly, but I can see that there's production stills coming out. I know this movie is actually happening. Just giving me a release date doesn't make me think that there's actually movement. Do you know why they tell the release dates versus production dates?
Yeah, and that's a question a lot of people ask. The first thing I understand is that while we talk a lot about movies moving release dates, it actually is the minority of the time that happens. I mean, the vast majority of the time, actually, movie announces its release date, it hits that release date. There are times and there are examples of when it doesn't, and that's why we talk about it, because it's not common. So when it does happen, we talk about it a lot. So that's one thing. The main reason they need to do this is because when you release your movie is so key. They have so much strategy about when they feel, they do market research about when this movie will do best when we have it in theater.
Christmas time, 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, or if it's a horror movie, when could that come out? If it's a softer, more romantic film, when did that come out? How are comic book movies performing good when are blockbusters doing it? So, and then they need to plant their flag. Because if they don't come out and plant their flag, you're going to get, while we joke about the Batman, Superman, and Captain America Civil War and now the 2 John Wick films, that's very, very rare. But if they don't come out and plant their flag, then what's going to happen is, like, I want to do Flash on, what was the date? July 1st, 2022. If they don't come out and announce that, then Marvel comes out and says, like, in 2 months, says, by the way, we've got Iron Man 4 coming out on July 1st, 2022. And then DC's like,
oh, actually, we wanted that weekend.
Yeah. And,
okay.
like, you
that
know,
makes sense.
too, the other big key to that is that making a movie, I mean, you know this, and Chris knows this. Making a movie is not, let's just get everybody together on Tuesday and let's see how fast we can do it. They have line producers that plan out every single detail of every single minute. Things go wrong, but every single detail of every single minute of every single day of shooting. They know that in 6 weeks at 5:03 p.m., you're doing a footage review with one of the guys from the studio, and they can tell you that 3 weeks in advance. They know exactly when they're going to start shooting. They know exactly when they're going to finish, and then they schedule reshooting time for another block of window. And every second you go over that costs the studio hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so they can pretty comfortably say, well, we know we're starting production on this date, so we know we're going to be done on this date. Give ourselves a little bit of buffer. We can have a movie released for us here, and that's why they do that. So, but Chris, you're seeing all of this. I mean, number one, do you think it's going to hit the date? Do you think Muschietti's still going to be the director? Do you think Ezra's still going to be our Flash? Still a lot of questions. How would you address this?
Oh, man. Fire sale. Everything must go. On my very first day of the John Campea Show, way back when, I'll wistfully look off this way, I said that I believe the Flash is the Don Quixote of the DCU. And I stand by this because what is this movie? I just don't believe it's going to be made. I don't think it's going to hit that release date. I don't think it's going to be with Ezra Miller, who I think is fine. I really like him as an actor. I really like him as a person. He's really, really nice. I don't necessarily like him as Barry Allen because it's a very different interpretation of that comic book character. It's very different from who he is in the comics, and that's fine. That's not to say you can't reinterpret characters or give them a fresh new take, but I mean, I feel like we should just bin this whole thing and do a Wally West Flash movie. As far as Andy goes, I do think he's probably locked in, like you were saying, because of now the new higher-ups there, really kind of dotting their I's, crossing their T's, doing all their due diligence, and really vetting people at this point to make sure that they have the right person as part of a job when it comes to their production team. But I think Ezra's out, and I think we need to just take a new, fresh take on this movie.
Question here is, guys, what do you think? Like, if you're like me, you want this to happen badly, but you have your doubts. But how are you feeling about it? Do you think it's going to hit the release date? Do you think Ezra's still going to be Flash? Do you think Andy's still going to be the director when it happens? Do you think, I don't know, is the Flash even still going to be around? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know what you guys think. All right.